I think I figured out why silver got to about 50 and didn't go higher. The reason is the stories were not ridiculous enough. As ridiculous as you thought some of these silver stories were. For example, like your bar of silver is going to buy you your neighbor's house, or, you know, an ounce of silver is going to equal an ounce of gold, or all these other things, right? Silver going to go extinct, like, you know, the dinosaur goes extinct. So these stories were not ridiculous enough because silver only went to 50. We needed more ridiculous stories to get that thing over to 65 to 100 in 2011. Okay, so I'm going to do another parallel to silver. Well, this is probably not a popular parallel, but with the B word, Bitcoin, because I know there are a lot of people in precious metals who are kind of watching Bitcoin and saying, hey, that should have been us. This Bitcoin price went from to this, right? And whatever. So I found, I've been reading about this, right? Because, you know, the price of Bitcoin was worth, a few days ago, more than the price of gold. Price of gold, of an ounce of gold is worth more than Bitcoin right now. But I'm looking at this article called Meet Bitcoin Jesus, a Virtual Currency Millionaire. And I know I'm reading an article off of Yahoo Finance. If I'm reading it off of Yahoo Finance, the information's been filtered, and it's already in the dumbest of the dumb money's viewing. So I'm viewing the dumbest of the dumb money's article here and going off a dumb money article for you. But I'm self-aware of that, so maybe I'm not quite as a dumb money, but I don't know. But, so this guy, Roger Ver, who I just found out about today, so I don't know anything about him except what I'm reading, is called the Bitcoin Jesus. You know, I would have considered like Max Kaiser the Bitcoin Jesus because Max Kaiser was, you know, talking Bitcoin for years. Even Da Vinci could be a Bitcoin Jesus, right? So going back here, so this guy is like a Bitcoin Jesus, and maybe there's many of them. Maybe it says there's hundreds of them, hundreds of multimillionaires in Bitcoins. There could be hundreds of Bitcoin Jesuses, right? Okay, so I'm reading about him, and he spent 10 years in prison. And looking at the thing, it says he was for selling explosives on eBay. Now, looking more into this, he was selling a product. This was like a product called something 2000. Oh, where is it? Pest Control Report 2000. Apparently, they used explosives in agriculture, and he was selling them with, like, I guess without a license and all these things. And so forth, and I guess he used the U.S. mail, so he violated, you know, by selling explosives through the mail and so forth. And looking at the things, it says that he said that he ran for California State Assembly in 2000 as a libertarian, and he upset the Fed so much he became the only person in the USA to be prosecuted for selling a illegal product, and so forth. So he goes, there's no freedom of speech. This is why the world needs Bitcoin, and so forth. Well, I find a lot of parallels with people in like precious metals and these other like libertarian areas where they were prosecuted unfairly against the system. Maybe they were, maybe they weren't. I don't know. We get the system, and it does things. So he was selling explosives over the internet, and he was using the mail. So and they got him for something. You know, I know there are people who do things like that never get in trouble, but he did this, and he got caught, and now he's like, you know, makes him a rebel, I guess, or whatever. But I see a lot of that. I saw a lot of that in silver. Like I saw some people, I won't name their names because they had a big following in the past where they had spent time for, like, you know, I guess insider trading, other things, and they use that as like a badge of honor now, like saying, aha, you know, I fought the system, and you know, I got persecuted for fighting the system. And this is where it's like, it's really hard to tell between a true rebel and a crook, right? Where's the line between a true rebel and a crook? Some of them probably are true rebels, some are crooks. So it's a really interesting fine line. And in my past work experiences, I've never worked with people who were either, right? I never worked with anybody who had sort of time for anything. Maybe it's just I was just pampered. I don't know, but or the circles I hung out in. I don't know, but I'm looking at this stuff, and he said something that was interesting. He goes, "This Bitcoin Jesus says that his wealth is much more liquid than it would be in a normal bank account." So he says that his Bitcoin wealth, his virtual wealth, is more liquid than it would be in a normal bank account. I guess what happens is he has a different definition for liquidity than the rest of us. And I found that in precious metals. In precious metals, some of these top pundits would take terminology and they would kind of brand the terminology to have their all new interpretation of that, right? So he's saying his Bitcoins are more liquid than his wealth in the normal bank account. Now, I don't know about you, but in my life interactions, everybody I interact with, every institution, I can wire them money like that. Boom. If they want money, I can wire them money. I can write people a check. It's very easy. I have a credit union, you know, and if I have to send my money to any evil bankster institution, there is no delay. It's instantaneous, right? And it's easy. And everybody I know will accept my evil bankster transactions and so forth. Now he's saying that his virtual currency is more liquid. I guess maybe what he means is there are like no quote capital controls around it. You know, so if one Bitcoin person here and one Bitcoin person somewhere else, as long as they have internet access, they can transfer back and forth. But really, as far as liquidity goes, I would say that the only person like I know in real life, like, and I know a lot of people, less than on this hand would be able to accept a Bitcoin, right? I mean, there's a guy down the street who's now mining Bitcoins. His wife was saying, my husband's doing something with the computers. We were talking about Bitcoin. He goes, oh yeah, I think my husband's, what's he doing with this? I said, he's mining them, and I was explaining to her what it was. So, and of course, Da Vinci, I know Da Vinci and a few others. But other than that, of the thousands upon thousands of people I've interacted with in recent time, not a single one of them would be able to handle a Bitcoin transaction. So if he says his Bitcoins are more liquid, he must have a different term for he must have a different definition of liquid than I guess the rest of us are used to. I know that was happening more for silver. They would have their own side definitions, because words, like the definitions of words, do change over time. So I want to say this is interesting. Is you know, I don't know anything about this guy. I'm just reading here. You know, he's got his own case in the forums. He's defending himself. His supporters are defending him. But I'm just saying is that, you know, when it comes to Bitcoin and silver, a lot of these pundits, you look at their past, they have something like this. Like, you know, they were selling something else and they ended up going to prison for it, or they get fined for it, or regulators didn't like them. Maybe they're rebels. Maybe something else. But I do want to leave off with a parallel, is that, you know, in the 1980 era, we had the Hunt brothers with the silver. Now we have the Winklevoss twins with Bitcoin. And for those of you who aren't familiar, these Winklevoss twins were involved in the lawsuit with Facebook because they claimed that the Facebook kind of stole their idea, and they had some cash settlement and so forth. And actually, when they were at Harvard, they actually went to Larry Summers. You know, Larry Summers, like the grand wizard of banksters. He was, you know, Treasury, high guy in the, you know, bankster system, and then he was a high guy at Harvard. So if you're fighting the system with Bitcoins, your champions are, you know, part of the system who are trying to use the system for their own benefit in the past, but I guess not anymore. Well, this is a long meandering video, and this Bitcoin saga is certainly fascinating, and I'm sure I'm going to say something that Bitcoin proponents won't like, and they'll get me angry comments as usual, but I'm used to that. But that's alright. That doesn't mean you get a license to be angry. Alright, thank you.